Thanks for tuning in today for a discussion that could be life-changing for you, your career, or your company. One of the 10 founding principles of Google is best to do one thing really, really well. Google does search very well. This philosophy has helped Google grow from a research project to a $36 billion company in just 15 years. Another one of Google's 10 founding principles is great just isn't good enough. It has built an empire by deciding to focus on one thing and then go beyond great. Our guest today helps executive teams decide their one thing, then align everything to win. Dave Ramos is the founder and CEO of Shift Points Incorporated. He's got an MBA from the Harvard Business School and has held executive positions with IBM and Nortel Networks. Dave Ramos is also the author of the book, Decide One Thing. It's great to have you on the program today. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Dave. This is Jackie Reed. I'm the co-host of the Aaron Bernard Show.
Nice to meet you, Jackie.
So you've written this book, Decide One Thing. And when I was doing research on this, I thought it was really interesting that you say that organizations, in order to be good, they really need to focus on being differentiatingly great at one thing. Why just one thing?
Well, I think the fact of the matter is it's hard to be great, and it's certainly impossible to be great at everything. So what we work with our clients to do is help them to find the one thing that they really could be great at, and then put a plan in place to become great. And we find that focusing on one thing is what allows them to climb that ladder of greatness.
You know, I think about Oprah Winfrey when she left doing her television show and started the OWN network. And I know we all read about it. The network struggled as she tried to juggle so many things. And then she moved out to California and really focused on that network. I guess for her too, and you would be the expert more than me, she needed to focus on one thing. And now the network is in the black and it's become successful.
Well, I think that's a good example of exactly what we try to help people through with the book, and go through the process of evaluating, what do our clients value? Of all the things that our clients value, what could we become great at doing? And let's pick one and start working on becoming great.
So how do you decide on the one thing? If you're a company, if you're an entrepreneur and you have several interests, how do you decide what that one thing is that you should put your energy and focus into?
Well, I think it starts with looking inside the organization, or in the case of an individual, inside yourself, as to how you're uniquely wired. What are the things that you're most passionate about? What are the things that you're already very, very good at? And then start using that as a way of winnowing down the list, and then mapping that against the external market realities in the competitive marketplace, for example, what your competitors are doing, what they're focused on, their strategy, and then find the way for you to create a competitive advantage. And that's really what the book's all about. In
the book, you refer to Shift Points. Explain what that is.
Well, Shift Points is the name of our consulting company, and we have a model that we call the 3 shift points. And this process that we describe in the first book, called Decide One Thing, that's the first of the 3 shift points. The second shift point is what we call Drive One Direction, and that is about creating organizational alignment. In fact, I'm working on the book Drive One Direction, and it should be released in the fall. And then the third part of it is Deliver Every Time, and those are the 3 shift points. And that third one, Deliver Every Time, covers the idea that we have to deliver what we promise to the customer, not just one time, but every time. So every time they come into your church, they experience that level of greatness. Or every time they come into your store, or into your restaurant, or into your dry cleaner, or whatever it is that you happen to be offering. And that process of becoming great is the key is that you deliver that greatness every time. And that's what the 3 shift points are about.
You talk a little bit about this in the book, but explain to our audience how you came to this, that focusing on one thing could help organizations and companies be great. How'd you come to this?
Well, I spent 25 years in the corporate world. I spent 3 years working in the church world, and we spent a lot of time consulting after that with a variety of organizations. And what we learned is that organizations plateaued because they were trying to do too many things. They were scattered and diffused. They were pursuing too many markets, trying to build too many markets, going in too many directions. And what happens is that diffuses energy, and it really creates a level of dysfunctionality and underperformance in the organization. So as a result of working with clients who had plateaued and trying to understand why they plateaued, we came up with this model, the 3 shift points, that starts with, let's find something we can be great at. Let's apply what we call the biblical principle of pruning to prune the things that are good but not in alignment with our one thing. And let's get focused and start winning.
A big part of what you spend your time doing is helping executive teams to grasp this concept and decide what their one thing is. Do you get a lot of resistance, or is it an easy transition to get people to, think along the lines that you're thinking with the one thing concept?
Well, occasionally we encounter resistance, and people tease me about just one thing, for example, as you can imagine. But I think we have the compelling case studies that prove that the methodology works. At this point, we've applied this to a really wide variety of organizations, from construction companies to churches, for-profits, non-profits, big companies, small companies. And I think that once executives start to see the proof that we can offer for the methodology and start to understand the value that gets created by this level of focus, they come around.
I bet they do. Now, are you saying that these companies and churches and organizations, that if they are doing multiple things, that they need to just drop those things, or do they need to figure out a way to incorporate it into one unit?
A lot of people misinterpret what we mean when we say decide one thing, because we don't say that you can only do one thing. The decide one thing says, let's pick something that we elevate as the main thing. There's this line that says, only one thing can be the main thing. In our world of competing priorities, it was really just in the 20th century that the word priority became pluralized. Now we say priorities, plural. But it used to be priority as in singular and one. And I think this is the idea. Let's make one thing the main thing and use that as the way to differentiate ourselves against our competitors. And so, for example, the retail store Nordstrom, they chose service as the main thing that they focus on to become great at. By contrast, Walmart chose prices, and low prices in particular, as the thing that they were going to use as a competitive advantage. In the car business, for example, BMW chose performance, and Lexus chose quality. And this is an example of what we're talking about. Let's find some value proposition and make that the main thing, use that as a way of creating organizational alignment and focus, and the results have been really transformative.
And how do companies and organizations do that without letting other things suffer, other parts of their business suffer?
Well, I think the practical reality is that you have to decide how you're going to allocate resources. Mm-hmm. And you can't allocate all the resources to everything. You have to prioritize and choose. And by default, you have to, as you're allocating the budget, let's say, decide where are we going to invest our limited resources. Companies have limited numbers of employees and human resources, and similarly they have to choose of where to invest them. And what we advise companies to do is with this phrase, let's be good at lots of things and great at one thing. So it doesn't mean that we're going to stop doing a variety of other things, but what we are going to do is double our effort, let's say, double our investment in that one main area, so that creates a level of organizational greatness. And that's what inspires employees. So many employees today are working in organizations that are dysfunctional, and most people are pretty demoralized, frankly. And what we found is when we go through this process with organizations that says, let's be great, let's be so amazingly great that the customers who come to our store or the people that come to our church or whatever, they say, wow, I haven't experienced that before.
Yeah.
And that's inspiring for employees. People want to work for that kind of organization that sets that level of greatness.
And that does make a difference when your employees are excited about coming to work. Dave Ramos, let me pause you right there. We're going to take a quick break. I'm speaking with Dave Ramos, the author of Decide One Thing, and it's helping companies and organizations focus on how to be their best at one thing and do that really, really well. You're listening to the A.R. Bernard Show.
Audacious Power by A.R. Bernard will teach you how to tap into the audacious power of God in order to accomplish daring goals. This unique teaching guides you into understanding your relationship with your remarkable God and why He has released His power into your life. Our sovereign God would have you to know that there is no reason why you can't accomplish great things. Today, challenge yourself to conquer and make real your most audacious goals. Make sure you add this audacious teaching by A.R. Bernard to your collection. It's available on CD, DVD, and MP3 download. CDs $6, DVD $10, and MP3 download $4.99. To order, you may call 1-800-687-1777 or go online to cccinfo.org and click on Online Store.
Becoming strong in the Spirit. A.R. Bernard, in a very clear and concise way, explains the often mysterious relationship between our spirit and God's Spirit. Becoming Strong in the Spirit by A.R. Bernard gives us a glimpse inside the person who is strong in the Spirit. This message is available now on CD and MP3 download. CD $6 and the MP3 download for $4.99. Call 1-800-687-1777 or go to cccinfo.org and click on Online Store.
Welcome back to the A.R. Bernard Show. I'm A.R. Bernard. My guest today is Dave Ramos, author of the book Decide One Thing. Dave is the founder and CEO of Shift Points, a consulting firm that helps executive teams decide one thing, then align everything behind that one thing, and do it to win. And I'm curious, of course, as to how this would apply to a religious organization, such as a church or a mosque or a temple. But let's stick with church.
Well, it's a very interesting question. As I mentioned to Jackie, I spent 3 years in my career working at a large church here in Northern Virginia. And so I got to see the operations of a church up close and personal from the perspective of a staff member. And I think that all organizations struggle with this issue of focus. Mm-hmm. But I think churches struggle especially with it. It seems to me that almost by definition, every ministry idea that you could ever come up with is a good one. You know, you can imagine, well, we should do something for homeless, yes, or we should do something for unwed mothers, or we should do something for the victims of the hurricane, or whatever. And people in the congregation come up to the staff with all these ideas, and they're all good. But, of course, you can't say yes to all of them.
Right.
You have to choose. And the process of deciding how to say yes to the best ideas, and then, of course, within the confines of the church, to diplomatically say no to the ones that are good but off mission or out of the alignment with the strategy, it's imperative for a church.
Churches can be very impulsive in terms of their response to issues, and unfortunately, many of them don't have some type of framework. Rick Warren, a friend of mine, tried to address this in his book. He did The Purpose-Driven Life, but he also did The Purpose-Driven Church and tried to really get churches to stop and think about what their key purposes are and how they can stay focused on those things. Is this something that you've noticed anywhere, or most of the churches you've dealt with don't have a clear understanding of what their purpose is?
Well, I think many churches focus on this from the perspective of wordsmithing their vision statement or their mission statement. And those are good things, I guess, but the real issue is strategy. It's how are we going to accomplish the mission? How are we going to get to where our vision statement says we want to go? And this is the trick. In churches in particular, vision and mission sound good. They sound like biblical words, and everybody's comfortable using them.
Right.
Strategy and metrics, well, they sound like business words, and people are less comfortable. But in my experience, it's strategy and prioritization and metrics. This is the real issue in churches.
Mm-hmm. And we understand that. I mean, we're a small church of 37,000 members, and we run things as a business. We've been criticized for running things very corporately, and yet we don't lose that high touch, even though we're high tech. But most churches in the United States are about 200 members on average, and they don't grow beyond that because they're not able to focus the way you say they should focus.
Well, I think there are many factors that cause an organization, whether it's a church or a business or anything, to plateau at a certain size level. Lack of focus is clearly one of the main ones.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that deciding one thing could restrict the evolution of a company to expand its products and services?
Well, I think the concept is counterintuitive. Some people have looked at the book or the title and said, no, we don't want to just do one thing. And we're not saying that you only do one thing. We're saying that you get intensely focused about becoming great. And great at one thing is a big part of that. But I think there's a big difference between running an organization that's diversified or has multiple offerings and an organization that's dabbling in all things to all people fashion and is really all over the place. I think it's a matter of degree.
Yeah, I like the word dabbling. So if we do chicken right, we need to stick with doing chicken right. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think that's exactly right, and it's a matter of saying, let's be realistic about where we operate within the competitive environment, and let's be realistic about what it's going to take to win. And obviously, winning is a word that businesses are comfortable with. Sometimes churches not so much. Mm-hmm. But let's be realistic about where we fit, and let's be great, and let's not dabble. As I say, dabbling never wins.
Right. Now we're going to take a quick break. When we return, more with executive consultant Dave Ramos on the concept of decide one thing. You're listening to the A.R. Bernard Show.
You must learn to hear the voice of God. Once again, A.R. Bernard rises to the occasion, bringing clarity to the scriptures and providing you and I with the tools, knowledge, and understanding needed to hear from God, minus the static of false voices. Be aware that God has a divine design for your life. He wants to communicate with you daily, infusing you with His Spirit. He wants you to prosper in all that you do. Learn how you can distinguish God's voice from the counterfeit. Pick up this anointed teaching, Your Greatest Asset in Life, by A.R. Bernard. It's available today on CD, DVD, and MP3 download. CDs, $6, DVDs, $10, and MP3 download, $4.99. You may call 1-800-687-1777 or go online at cccinfo.org and click on Online Store.
A.R. Bernard teaches on the purpose of mentoring.
Relationships is the network for life.
Learn what is a mentor and the prerequisites to having a good mentoring relationship. Whether you're the one who needs a mentor or you are the mentor, this message is a must-have.
Every time I went from one level of life to another, it's always by way of some relationship. Originally, the word mentor was someone who caused others to think about life, to think about their goals, their objectives.
You'll get biblical insight on mentoring in this dynamic message from A.R. Bernard. Available now on CD, DVD, and MP3 download. CDs, $6. DVDs, $10. And MP3 downloads, just $4.99. Call 1-800-687-1777. Again, that's 1-800-687-1777. Go to cccinfo.org and click on Online Store.
Welcome back to the A.R. Bernard Show. I'm A.R. Bernard. We've been having a stimulating conversation with Dave Ramos, the author of the book, Decide One Thing. Dave says organizations have to be good at a lot of things, but the way to win is to become differentiatingly great at one thing. You have to decide, what is your one thing? I'm sure that you've been on the talk circuit. How do corporations, how have they embraced this? Has it been favorable?
Oh, the reaction's been fantastic. You know, we have a range of clients that have gone through our process with us. Many of them have doubled in size. One has quadrupled in size. And so we have the results to demonstrate that it works. In the book, we have a wide variety of case studies that we write about. You know, everything from Lady Gaga to Dyson Vacuum to USAA Insurance to McLean Bible Church, where I used to work. And I think it gives people a sense of the applicability of this idea in whatever setting they're in.
I think when we have so many offerings in this world and access to all of those offerings, focus is one thing that is lacking. So I applaud the book on that one point alone, that it really, really speaks of the power of focus in terms of what you want to do corporately, organizationally, and individually. People are all over the place today.
Well, that's correct. I think this applies at all those levels. And at the individual, we all have to choose. We all have to decide where to invest our time. We have to take a look at how God has made us and wired us, and stay true to our calling and our design.
Well, I think this book is more than just something that you came up with to help organizations. I think it's really something of a calling upon your life, because this is very, very needed in this particular time. Because it creates an identity crisis. I'm sure you're familiar with Phil Collins' Good to Great. And, he talked about how it's easy once you're pressured by what's happening around you to try to become what everybody else is becoming and keep up with the new thing. But he says we need to clearly identify who we are and what we're good at and get better at it. And you really, really support that idea.
That's right. And many of our clients had read through the Jim Collins Good to Great model and tried to apply the concept of the hedgehog in particular. Mm-hmm. And frankly, they struggled to do it. In fact, in Mr. Collins' book, he even says that it takes the average organization 4 years to go through the hedgehog process and another 2 years for that to produce results.
Wow.
In contrast, our clients are busy entrepreneurs and leaders that are in the fast lane. We call them fast lane leaders. They don't want to wait 6 years for something to produce results. So we had to develop a methodology that would allow us to get at this issue of focus and alignment very quickly. And in fact, we do that with our clients in 90 days.
Yeah, focus is powerful. I mean, all of your energy, your creativity gets behind that one thing. I think it's a brilliant idea. And again, Dave Ramos, thank you for being on our program. And I'm sure that our paths will cross again.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Bernard. And Jackie, I enjoyed being with you as well.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. And thank you, Jackie Reed, for really handling the program today.
Warming it up for you, Doug.
I don't mind being your sidekick today.
Listen.
Dave Ramos, this has been a great dialogue on the need for corporations, nonprofits, and individuals to decide one thing. Align everything behind it and then see great results. Dave is the CEO of Shift Points Incorporated and the author of the book, Decide One Thing. Thanks so much, Dave, for sharing your expertise here on the A.R. Bernard Show. I hope our listeners put these concepts into practice. Until next time, I'm A.R. Bernard, hoping you have a great week.